If there is any call that can make a person step beyond their most instinctive fear, it is not the trumpet of victory, not the promise of wealth, and not a prayer for forgiveness. It is the thunder of hooves pounding across the sky, right above your head. In the moment you lie on your back under a cold heaven, blood soaking into the earth, your breath thin as smoke. And in that moment, a question pins itself straight into the heart, sharper than any blade. If death truly has messengers, do they come to redeem you, or to stamp your fate one final time? Because the Valkyries, the warrior women of the North, are not merely angels on the battlefield. They are the choice of death. They are the hand of destiny. And the most terrifying thing is not that they arrive, but that you suddenly want to be chosen by them. Imagine a battle in the ancient North, where the ground is not soft, but hard as stone, where the wind is not only cold, but bites the skin like salt. Men bearing round shields, leather armor, and rough iron helms stand in a line before a forest of black pines. They do not fight for a vast kingdom, for laws, or for borders drawn on a map. They fight for honor, for oaths, for the sound of their names being remembered. Iron striking iron bursts like a series of small, repeated bolts of lightning. Ragged breaths, roars, and bones breaking sound like dry wood snapping. And then, amid the wreckage, when everything seems to collapse into chaos, an invisible order is taking place, quiet as night, choosing which star will go out. Above, right on the crown of the clouds, there may be a road the living cannot see. The Norse spoke of their worlds like the roots and branches of a colossal tree. Above lies Asgard, where the gods dwell, Midgard, where humans plow and bear children, Hell, where cold darkness holds the souls that are not praised. And between these layers, a streak of light slides through the sky like a sword slash. That is Bifrost, the rainbow bridge, beautiful and dangerous at once, like a radiant promise that can burn the weak to ash. Along those hidden ways, the Valkyries appear like something that does not belong to ordinary people. Valkyries are not always told as gentle beauties. In the old stories, they carry the face of war. They wear armor, don helms, and hold spears. They ride horses with manes like fire and hooves like stone. Sometimes it is said they fly like birds, with swan feather cloaks, able to abandon human shape and become winged forms, as though the battlefield were only a surface of water and they were being stepping across from the far side. When they come, the mist grows thicker, the light turns more silver, and in the eyes of the dying, they are both terror and a beauty you cannot look away from. Their name, Valkyrie, means the one who chooses the slain. They do not gather corpses like servants of hell, they choose. And it is that act of choosing that makes them frightening. Because choosing means value. Choosing means ranking. Choosing means not everyone is taken. On the battlefield, some deaths are silent as a branch snapping, falling into snow with no one hearing. But other deaths flare like a final blaze. The Valkyries are said to see that, and to lift such a soul up, as one would lift a sword still hot from the forge. Where they carry the chosen is not a heaven of rest. It is something far stranger. Valhalla, Odin's great hall. If you imagine paradise as flower fields and soft music, Valhalla will chill you. It is a colossal hall, roofed with shields, pillars made of spears. A great door like the mouth of a beast, opening to swallow blizzards. Inside are firelight, laughter, the smell of roasted meat, the clink of cups. But this is not a feast for those who have escaped war. It is the feast of those being prepared for a greater war. The Einherjar, the chosen dead, do not sleep in peace. They train every day, cutting each other down to death and rising again, so that at the gods' apocalypse, Ragnarok, they may stand beside Odin. Valhalla is therefore not a reward, but an eternal barracks. And the Valkyries are the recruiters. In many tellings, Valkyries are not only escorts. They serve in the hall, pouring mead, carrying meat, watching warriors eat like satiated wolves. That image may sound submissive, but look closer. This is not service by the weak. It is closer to ritual. The one who pours in Valhalla is the witness, and the witness holds the power of memory. In the Norse world, memory is worth more than gold. Whoever is remembered lives. Whoever is forgotten dissolves into mist. The Valkyries stand at the threshold between being erased and having a name carved into permanence. But Valkyries are not a single block like a nameless troop. The stories name them, and each name cuts a notch into the idea of war. Some names evoke the ring of blades, some evoke storms, some evoke fear. Some tales speak of Brynhildr, a powerful Valkyrie, proud enough to defy Odin and be punished. Others tell of Sigrun, of Valkyries who are fate and love at once, who can pull a man up from death or drag him into tragedy. And here the story begins to turn in a fascinating direction, because Valkyries, though they belong to war, often enter legend through something deeply human: love, betrayal, choosing, and paying the price. Step into a story like a fogged film scene. A young warrior, driven from his homeland, carries an oath with no road back. He walks through forests, over passes, through places where the wind sounds like it is calling names. One day, he sees a group of women in armor seated by the water's edge, metal glinting like fish scales beneath a gray sun. They do not resemble ordinary people, because their silence is not fear, but the confidence of those who belong to a larger order. Then one of them looks up. That gaze makes him understand something absurd yet undeniable. There are eyes that do not ask, "Who are you?" but "Are you worthy?" The feeling of being judged, strangely, makes him want to step forward. In many versions, a Valkyrie can be kept in the human world by having her swan feather cloak taken, or by being bound by a curse. When they lose their wings, they become more like humans, but not entirely. They still carry the sky's cold in their voices, still keep a distance as though looking through you toward another horizon. And the love between a Valkyrie and a mortal, if you read closely, always contains sadness from the beginning, because it is love between two currents that cannot merge. One is finite life, the other is an eternal call. Even if they truly love, even if they truly stay, in the end, the thunder of hooves will sound again. And when it does, the question is no longer who is right or wrong, but who belongs where. If you see Valkyries as symbols, you will find they are a bridge, but not a bridge toward comfort. They lead toward meaning. The Norse lived in a brutal world. Long winters, savage seas, death as close as a neighbor. In that setting, the idea of death as a meaningful selection is a powerful medicine. It turns fear into a measure of honor. It turns the chaos of war into a stage where your actions can be recorded by a supernatural force. You do not die only because you are unlucky. You die inside a story. And if you die right, if you die beautifully, you do not vanish. You are named, and you are carried into the hall. But here lies the greatest contradiction, and the very thing that makes Valkyries haunt us even now. Are they angels or reapers? Do they redeem or do they recruit? Is Valhalla a reward or a chain? If you think Valhalla is heaven, remember that there you still must grip a sword every day. If you think it is glory, remember that this glory serves a foretold war where even the gods are not certain of victory. Odin does not gather souls so they may be happy. Odin gathers them to prolong a destined battle. And the Valkyries, as choosers, are links in a system both magnificent and ruthless. This is the moment we should look Odin in the eye. Odin is not a god who only blesses. He is the god of wisdom, war, and poetry. But Odin's wisdom always walks with sacrifice and cold calculation. He is willing to hang himself on the world tree to seize the runes. He is willing to trade an eye to drink from the well of knowledge. and he is willing to turn Valhalla into a factory for producing warriors. The Valkyries, then, are not merely beautiful women who fly. They are policy. They are mechanism. They are a divine strategy aimed at the future. Put that image on the shoulders of warrior angels, and you will understand why they are celebrated and yet make people shiver. If you ask why Valkyries are so often female, the answer is not only aesthetics. In many ancient societies, women are tied to birth and to farewell. They are the mourners, the keepers of the hearth, the ones who remember ancestors' names. When war comes, men leave and women remain as witnesses to the aftermath, turning death into story so the community can endure. Valkyries can be seen as a mythic version of that role, raised into ultimate power. Not only weeping, but choosing. Not only burying, but carrying souls across the threshold. They are no longer passive. They become subjects of fate, and thus they stand among the earliest images of female power in European myth. Not soft power, but steel power, battlefield power. Still, do not rush to turn Valkyries into a modern symbol too neatly. They are not feminist in today's sense, and they do not fight for an ideal of equality. They exist inside the logic of honor and violence, where a life can be measured by the manner of death. That sounds extreme, but think carefully. In a world where you cannot control weather, disease, or famine, the only thing you can truly control is how you face what comes. Valkyries are a culture's answer. If you cannot escape death, turn it into something meaningful, something witnessed, something with a door that opens. And so, across thousands of years, the Valkyrie image does not die with myth. It lives on like a blade embedded in ice. You see Valkyries in opera, painting, comics, games, films. Sometimes they are drawn as shining armored warriors, sometimes as blonde women on white horses, sometimes as cold entities holding spears. What is fascinating is that every era chooses the Valkyrie that matches its own obsession. The Romantic era chooses the Valkyrie as tragic love between fate and humanity. The age of modern war chooses the Valkyrie as a symbol of organized death of industrial battlefields. The era of games and cinema chooses the Valkyrie as fantasy power, a violent beauty people both want to become and want to behold. But one thing never changes. Valkyries are always a call. No matter what century you live in, there is a part of you that wants recognition at your hardest moment. You want pain not to be meaningless. You want sacrifice not to fall into silence. The Valkyrie is myth's way of saying there is a supernatural jury watching. And if you are brave enough, you will not disappear. That is dangerous, because it can romanticize war. But it also reveals something very real. The human need to feel part of a larger story. And now we return to the sharpest question. If a Valkyrie came to you, would you want to be chosen? If you answer yes, you have touched the dark temptation of Valhalla. Because being chosen means you died in a way your culture honors, but it also means you are pulled into a larger machine where the afterlife is not rest, but continued battle. If you answer no, you touch an even deeper fear, the fear of dying nameless, the fear of vanishing without anyone remembering. This contradiction is why Valkyries are both beautiful and terrifying. They stand at the exact crossing of two obsessions: the desire to be immortal in memory and the desire to be at peace. Imagine a Valkyrie standing alone on a snowy mountainside. The sky is gray as steel. Her cloak snaps like a banner. She looks down into the valley where the battle has died out, leaving only bodies and thin smoke. She does not weep. She does not smile. She only chooses. And in that moment, if you are a soul freshly torn from the body, you see the living world retreat like a painting sinking into mist. You see a door open, not into a gentle heaven, but into a firelit hall where laughter booms like thunder under a roof. You see Odin on his throne, one eye staring at you, as if you were a piece on a board, and yet also as if you were a story. And you understand that Valhalla does not promise comfort. It promises position, a seat in the history of myth. Here we can unravel an even deeper layer. Valhalla is an image of humanity refusing to accept an ending. We cannot bear the thought that death is a period, so we turn the period into a colon. We continue the sentence. The Norse continued it with a hall, with an apocalypse war, with the dead not truly resting. We today continue it differently, through legacy, through reputation, through work, through whatever can remain after we are gone. The Valkyrie, then, can be understood as the moment a life is defined. They come not only to end you, but to frame you. Who will you be in this story? But what happens to those not chosen? In myth, not everyone who dies goes to Valhalla. Some souls go to hell. Some belong to Freyja and Folkvanger in certain traditions. Meaning even in the Norse world, there are other roads, other deaths, other ways of being remembered. That makes the Valkyrie story less simple and also less toxic. It says battlefield glory is not the only gate. It is simply the loudest gate, the brightest gate, and therefore the most haunting. And for that reason, Valkyries can also be read as a warning. When a culture glorifies a beautiful death, it can push the living to chase death. But when a culture strips all meaning from sacrifice, it leaves people hollow. Valkyries stand between these extremes. They remind us that humans need meaning, but also that meaning can be exploited. Odin gathers warriors not from compassion, but from strategy. A beautified death can become a tool. And this is a very modern question, even though it comes from ancient myth. What are we sacrificing for? And who benefits from that sacrifice? Now try placing Valkyries into your world. Not on a battlefield of swords and shields, but on the invisible battlefield of life. There are days you fight illness, poverty, loneliness, the feeling that you are worthless. No one sees. No one applauds. There is no trumpet of victory. On those days, the deepest human longing is not glory, but for someone to say, I see you. I know you tried. I choose you. The Valkyrie, on the symbolic level, is that voice, magnified into myth. And Valhalla, on the symbolic level, is the place where effort does not fall into silence, a hall of recognition. But like Valhalla, that recognition comes with a price. Being chosen means being defined by the battle you survived. You can become trapped in the role of warrior, unable to live normally again. How many people in real life, after a period of struggle, cannot return to peace? They become addicted to tension, addicted to the feeling of always being in the fight. They need enemies to exist. That is the modern Valhalla, where you never truly rest. And the eternal call of Valhalla can sometimes be the call of an ego that needs to feel important at any cost. So if you ask me what Valkyries are, the answer can never be only women riding horses. Valkyries are dream and nightmare at once. They are the idea that death can take a beautiful form and carry meaning. They are the idea that sacrifice is witnessed. But they are also the idea that sacrifice can be recruited, turned into fuel for a war that never ends. Valkyries lift you up, and they lock you into a destiny. And now return to the opening scene, where you lie beneath a cold sky. The hooves draw closer. Snow falls quiet as ash. A figure in armor appears, silver as moonlight on a blade. She bends down. There are no words of comfort, only a gaze, as if she is weighing something you never believed could be weighed, the worth of your final moment. If she offers her hand, it is not the hand of life. It is the hand of story. You take it, and the world changes color. Wind is no longer wind, but a trumpet. Fire is no longer fire, but the lamps of a great hall. You step into Valhalla and understand that eternity is not always peace. Sometimes eternity is a call that never stops, a battle that repeats, a hunger that refuses to die. And the last question, the question Valkyries always leave behind like a thin cut on the mind. If there were a Valhalla for you, a place where every effort is recognized, would you dare pay the price of being a warrior forever? Or would you choose another kind of immortality, quieter, less dazzling, but truly yours? Valkyries do not answer for you. They appear only when you can no longer run. And that is why they live on in myth, and in every person like hoofbeats far away. Yet the longer you listen, the closer they come.